The massive space station, called Concordia, floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and served as the meeting place for the Galactic Council. Today, representatives from 847 different alien species crowded into the Great Meeting Hall. The air was thick with tension and the strange smells of hundreds of different worlds. Speaker Veltar stood at the center podium. His blue skin had turned pale with worry. As the leader of the hegemony, one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, he had seen many wars. But nothing like this. Nothing like what the humans were doing. Fellow council members, Veltar's voice echoed through the vast chamber. We face a crisis unlike any in our 50,000 years of recorded history. The species known as humans have been active in our galaxy for only 3 standard cycles. In that short time, they have destroyed 17 of our combined fleets. A low murmur ran through the crowd. The insect-like Zethkri clicked their mandibles, in distress. The crystalline Luminos pulsed with worried light. Even the mighty Void Hunters, who had never lost a battle in living memory, sat in stunned silence. Admiral Corex of the Stellar Navy stepped forward. His species, the Draknari, were known as the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Their red scales were marked with scars from 1,000 battles. But today, Corex looked defeated. The humans do not fight like any enemy we have faced, Corex reported. They do not seek to conquer territory. They do not want our resources. They do not even try to capture prisoners for information. They simply destroy everything we send against them and return to their small section of space. The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Some species demanded immediate action. Others suggested retreat. A few even whispered about surrender, though such words had never been spoken in this hall before. Veltar raised his hand for silence. The situation is worse than you know. Yesterday, we received a report from the Kepler sector. The humans encountered a Void Hunter death fleet. 500 ships, each one capable of destroying a planet. The engagement lasted exactly 14 minutes. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone knew the reputation of the Void Hunters. They were the galaxy's ultimate weapon, used only when entire star systems needed to be eliminated. The idea that humans could destroy such a force in less than 15 minutes was impossible to accept. How? Asked Councillor Thara of the Peaceful Zenith Union. Her people had never known war, but even they understood the implications. How can one species defeat forces that have maintained galactic peace for millennia? Admiral Corex activated a holographic display. It showed the wreckage of the Void Hunter fleet floating in space. The massive ships had been cut apart with surgical precision. Some appeared to have been turned inside out. Others looked like they had been folded in half. We do not know, Corex admitted. Our best scientists cannot explain the weapons' signatures. The humans appear to use technology that violates several fundamental laws of physics. But more troubling than their weapons is their tactics. The hologram shifted to show battle recordings. The human ships moved in patterns that made no sense. They appeared in locations where sensors said nothing existed. They fired weapons from impossible angles. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to know exactly what their enemies would do before the enemies knew it themselves. They do not react to our strategies, Corex continued. They anticipate them. It is as if they can see the future of every battle before it begins. Veltar nodded grimly. Which brings us to why we are gathered today. 3 days ago, we sent our final ultimatum to the human homeworld. We demanded they surrender their territory and submit to galactic authority. Their response arrived this morning. A small communications device was placed on the central podium. Veltar activated it, and a human voice filled the chamber. The language was translated by the council's systems, but something in the tone made every being present feel cold. We have received your ultimatum. We reject it. Leave us alone. That was all. No threats, no demands, no negotiations, just 4 simple words that somehow carried more menace than any war cry. 5 words, Veltar said quietly. They used 5 words to dismiss the combined might of nearly 1,000 civilizations. The implications sank in slowly. The humans were not afraid. They were not impressed by the Council's power. They simply wanted to be left alone, and they were prepared to destroy anyone who refused to honor that request. Counselor Zexhai of the ancient Eternal Empire stood up. Her species had ruled star systems when most others were still discovering fire. Perhaps we have approached this incorrectly. What do we actually know about these humans? Where did they come from? How did they develop such capabilities so quickly? Dr. Mirren, the Council's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward. She was nervous, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. We have very little information. The humans appeared on our sensors only, recently. Their homeworld appears to be a high-gravity death world in the Outer Rim. Most surprising, they achieved spaceflight only 200 years ago. The number sent shockwaves through the assembly. Most species required thousands of years to develop safe space travel. The idea that humans had gone from primitive technology to galaxy-threatening power in 2 centuries was unthinkable. That is impossible, declared High Engineer Kwan of the Tech Union. Our models show that such rapid advancement would require... He paused, running calculations through his cybernetic implants. It would require a species that experiences technological advancement as an evolutionary pressure. The chamber fell silent again. Everyone understood what that meant. Most species developed technology slowly, carefully, building on the work of previous generations. But if a species faced constant extinction-level threats, they might evolve, to innovate at an impossible rate. Admiral Corex brought up another display. This one showed the human sector of space. It was tiny compared to the great empires, just a small cluster of stars on the galaxy's edge. But it was completely surrounded by defensive positions. Every asteroid had been turned into a fortress. Every planet bristled with weapons. It looked less like an empire and more like a cornered animal preparing for its final stand. They are not trying to conquer us, Corex realized aloud. They are trying to keep us away from their home. Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. If they are this powerful while simply defending themselves, what would happen if we forced them to go on the attack? The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Every being in the chamber was thinking the same thing, but none wanted to say it aloud. The humans had destroyed the galaxy's greatest fleets while barely leaving their own territory. If they decided to bring the war to their enemies' homeworlds, there might not be a galaxy left to rule. As if summoned by their fears, an urgent message arrived from the Outer Rim. Another human fleet had been spotted, moving toward the border of hegemony, space. It consisted of only 12 ships, but intelligence suggested that each one was the size of a small moon. The Galactic Council, rulers of nearly 1 million worlds, faced a terrible truth. They had awakened something that they could not control, could not defeat, and could not understand. The humans had given them a simple choice: leave them alone or face the consequences. For the first time in the Council's long history, its members began to seriously consider surrender. 3 days after the emergency council meeting, the galaxy's greatest military minds gathered in a secure facility deep within the hegemony core worlds. The building was hidden inside an asteroid, protected by layers of shields and weapons that could destroy entire star systems. But none of the beings inside felt safe. Admiral Zexhai stood before a massive holographic display showing human battle tactics. She had spent her entire life studying warfare, learning from conflicts that spanned thousands of years. But the human way of fighting made no sense to her trained mind. "Observe this engagement from the Vega system," she told the assembled officers. The hologram showed 2 fleets approaching each other in open space. The alien fleet followed standard doctrine, forming battle lines and advancing in formation. The human ships did something impossible. "They vanish," Admiral Zexhai said, pointing to the display. "Our sensors show them here one moment. Then they simply cease to exist. 3 minutes later, they appear inside our defensive formation and begin firing. The assembled officers watched in horrified fascination. The human ships materialized in the worst possible positions for their enemies. They fired weapons that seemed to bend space itself, then disappeared again before return fire could reach them. "How do they move like that?" asked General Thok of the warrior clans. His people were known for their direct, brutal fighting style. The human tactics offended his sense of honor. "No ship can teleport. It violates basic physics." Dr. Kellerin, the galaxy's leading expert on space-time manipulation, stepped forward. Her crystalline body pulsed with nervous energy. "We have analyzed the energy signatures. The humans are not teleporting. They are folding space around themselves. Imagine taking a piece of cloth and bringing two distant points together by folding it. The humans have somehow weaponized this concept." The implications were staggering. Faster-than-light travel was one thing. Every advanced civilization had it, but real-time space folding was theoretical at best. Most scientists believed it was impossible. "That requires technology centuries beyond our current capabilities," Dr. Kellerin continued. "Yet somehow, a species that achieved spaceflight only 200 years ago has mastered it." Admiral Zexahai changed the display to show a different battle. This one took place near a gas giant, with the alien fleet using the planet's gravity well for tactical advantage. It was a perfect defensive position, impossible to attack directly. "Watch what the humans do here," she said. The human fleet approached the gas giant from an angle that made no tactical sense. Instead of trying to fight their way through the defensive position, they did something that left the watching officers speechless. They began harvesting the gas giant itself. They turned the planet into a weapon, Admiral Zexhai explained. Using some kind of magnetic field manipulation, they extracted the planet's core material and launched it at our fleet. A few hours later, there was no gas giant and no defensive fleet. The silence in the room was complete. Everyone present had seen planets destroyed before. It was an unfortunate reality of galactic warfare, but they had never seen a planet casually converted into ammunition during a battle. General Voss of the Iron Legion stood up abruptly. His mechanical body clanked as he moved. "This is not warfare. This is something else entirely. These humans do not fight battles. They reshape reality to make battles impossible to lose." Dr. Threnwill, a xenobiologist who had studied hundreds of species, cleared her throat nervously. "I believe I may have discovered why the humans fight so differently. I have been analyzing their homeworld and evolutionary history." She activated her own display, showing a blue and green planet that looked deceptively peaceful. "This is Earth, the human homeworld. At first glance, it appears to be a standard garden world, but appearances can be deceiving." The display zoomed in to show various regions of the planet. What the officers saw defied belief. Massive storms that could flatten cities, volcanic eruptions that could change the climate, earthquakes that could split continents, ice ages that covered half the planet in frozen death. "The humans call their world a death planet," Dr. Threnwill explained. "It has experienced at least 5 major extinction events in its history. Each time, almost all life was destroyed, but somehow the ancestors of humanity survived every single one." She changed the display to show the human evolutionary timeline. It was unlike anything the assembled officers had ever seen. Most species evolved gradually, developing intelligence over millions of years. The human timeline looked like a series of desperate leaps. Every few 100,000 years, something tried to kill them all, Dr. Threnwill continued. Ice ages, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts, disease outbreaks. Each time, they were forced to adapt or die. They developed not just intelligence, but adaptability as a survival trait. Admiral Zexhai began to understand. "You are saying they evolved to overcome impossible odds." "More than that," Dr. Threnwill replied. "They evolved to see impossible odds as normal. Where other species would retreat or negotiate, humans have been conditioned by millions of years of evolution to innovate their way out of extinction scenarios. The display showed human technological development. It was accelerating at an exponential rate, with major breakthroughs happening every few decades rather than every few centuries. They do not develop technology the way we do, Dr. Threnwill explained. We build on existing knowledge, making gradual improvements. Humans treat every technological challenge as a potential extinction event. They do not ask, how can we improve this? They ask, how can we completely reimagine this to ensure our survival? General Thok was still struggling with the concept. But they are just one species on one planet. How can they threaten the entire galaxy? Dr. Kellerin answered him. Because they do not think like us. We see the galaxy as it is and try to work within its rules. Humans see the galaxy as it could be and rewrite the rules to make it happen. Every battle we have fought with them has been lost, because we were playing by our rules while they were playing by rules we did not know existed. Admiral HFY brought up the latest intelligence reports. Our spy networks have been trying to infiltrate human space for months. We have learned very little, but what we have discovered is terrifying. The display showed blurry images of human research facilities. Even through the poor quality of the stolen footage, the watching officers could see that the humans were working on projects that defied comprehension. They appear to be developing weapons that manipulate time itself, Admiral HFY reported. Our agents also report research into something they call probability engineering, the ability to change the likelihood of specific outcomes. The assembled officers sat in stunned silence. Time manipulation and probability control were the stuff of science fiction, theoretical concepts discussed by philosophers rather than engineers. How do we fight an enemy that can change the past and alter the future? Asked General Voss. Dr. Threnwill looked at the gathered military leaders with something approaching pity. You still do not understand. You are asking how to fight them. But fighting requires both sides to agree on what constitutes a battle. The humans do not fight wars the way we understand them. They solve problems. And right now, we are their problem. The meaning of her words sank in slowly. The galaxy's military leaders were not facing an enemy army. They were facing a species that viewed their entire civilization as an obstacle to be removed, and they were approaching that obstacle with the same innovative determination that had allowed them to survive dozens of near-extinction events. Admiral HFY turned off the displays and looked around the room. The question is no longer how to defeat the humans. The question is whether there is any way to coexist with them. But as urgent reports began flooding in of more human victories, even that question was beginning to seem optimistic. The humans were not just winning battles. They were winning them so completely that the defeated fleets simply ceased to exist, leaving no survivors to explain what had happened. The galaxy's greatest military minds were forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. They were not losing a war. They were being systematically eliminated by a species that treated their extinction as an engineering problem to be solved. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the human dreadnought Indomitable, looking out at the Kepler Nebula through the ship's massive viewports. The nebula was beautiful, with swirling clouds of gas and dust that sparkled with the light of newborn stars. It was also about to become a battlefield. "Status report," Chen ordered, her voice calm despite the situation they faced. Commander Park, her second-in-command, consulted his displays. Long-range sensors show the combined Galactic Council fleet approaching from the far side of the nebula. Current count is 2,437 ships. Chen nodded. The odds were worse than usual, but not impossibly so. She had learned long ago that humans had a different relationship with impossible odds than other species. Where aliens saw certain death, humans saw an interesting challenge. "And our fleet?" she asked. 12 ships, including us, Park replied. The Indomitable, 3 heavy cruisers, 5 destroyers, and 3 support vessels. The bridge crew continued, their preparations with practiced efficiency. None of them seemed concerned about being outnumbered 200 to 1. If anything, they appeared excited. Chen had seen that expression on human faces many times before. It was the look of people who were about to attempt something that should be impossible. Dr. Martinez, the fleet's chief science officer, approached Chen with a data pad. "Admiral, we have completed our analysis of the nebula's composition. The gas density is perfect for our purposes. Hydrogen concentrations are at optimal levels." Chen smiled. While the aliens saw the nebula as an obstacle that would limit visibility and interfere with sensors, her team saw it as an opportunity. That was the fundamental difference between human thinking and alien thinking. Aliens adapted to their environment. Humans adapted their environment to their needs. "Weapons status?" Chen inquired. "All systems operational," reported Lieutenant Commander Singh from the weapons station. "Probability cannons are charged and ready. Reality anchors are deployed. The spacefold torpedoes are armed and locked onto dimensional coordinates." An alien observer would have been confused by those weapon names. Most galactic civilizations used energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, or explosive missiles. Humans had developed weapons that attack the fundamental nature of existence itself. The probability cannons could alter the chance of specific outcomes occurring. A ship with perfect shields might suddenly find that its protection had a 90% chance of failing. The reality anchors prevented enemy ships from using advanced defensive systems by fixing the local laws of physics in place. The spacefold torpedoes hit their targets by traveling through folded space-time, making them impossible to intercept or avoid. "Engineering report?" Chen asked. Chief Engineer Thompson looked up from his station. "The dimensional engines are running at full capacity. We can maintain tactical spacefolding for approximately 6 hours before needing to recharge. The quantum computers are processing battle scenarios at maximum speed." Chen was satisfied. Her ship could literally step sideways out of normal space-time, allowing it to appear anywhere within several light-years instantaneously. The quantum computers could calculate millions of possible battle outcomes in real time, letting her choose the timeline where humanity achieved victory. "Captain," called the communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. They are demanding our surrender." Chen considered this for a moment. "Put them through." The main screen activated, showing a collection of alien faces representing dozens of different species. The one in the center, a blue-skinned being with 4 eyes, appeared to be in command. "Human vessels," the alien spoke. "You are vastly outnumbered. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to galactic law." Chen stepped forward, her hands clasped behind her back. "This is Admiral Chen of the Human Defense Fleet. You are in human territory. Please leave immediately." The alien commander seemed confused. "Admiral, surely you understand the situation. We have nearly 2,500 ships. You have 12. This is not a battle you can win." "You are correct," Chen replied calmly. "This is not a battle we can win." She paused, watching the alien's expression brighten with hope. "This is a battle we have already won. You just do not know it yet." The transmission ended. Chen turned to her crew, who were waiting for orders with eager anticipation. "All ships, begin Operation Impossible," she announced. What happened next would have been incomprehensible to any alien observer. The human ships did not advance to meet the enemy fleet. Instead, they began performing actions that seemed to have no military purpose. The Indomitable fired its probability cannons at empty space, creating zones where the normal laws of physics became unreliable. The heavy cruisers launched spacefold torpedoes at specific coordinates within the nebula, causing the gas clouds to collapse into dense pockets of matter. The destroyers began using their gravity manipulators to create artificial black holes the size of pinpricks. To the approaching alien fleet, it looked like the humans had lost their minds. The human ships were shooting at nothing, creating random, gravitational anomalies and wasting their ammunition on empty space. Some alien commanders began to wonder if the humans were attempting to surrender in some bizarre ritual. Then the nebula began to change. The gas clouds that had been floating randomly started to move in specific patterns. The artificial black holes began pulling matter toward them, creating rivers of dense material flowing through space. The probability fields started interacting with each other, creating areas where different laws of physics applied. Admiral Chen watched the transformation with satisfaction. While the aliens had seen a nebula, her team had seen raw materials. They were not fighting in the nebula. They were turning the nebula itself into a weapon. "All ships, Phase 2, Chen ordered. The human vessels suddenly vanished from normal space-time, stepping sideways into folded dimensions. To the alien fleet, it appeared that their enemies had simply stopped existing, but Chen could see everything from her position outside normal reality. The alien fleet was advancing in perfect formation, following standard tactical doctrine. They had arranged themselves to provide mutual support and overlapping fields of fire. It was exactly what Chen had hoped they would do. "Execute Nova Protocol," she commanded. The spacefold torpedoes that her ships had been firing at random coordinates suddenly revealed their purpose. They had not been aimed at empty space. They had been aimed at specific points in folded space-time, creating a network of connected explosions that existed outside normal dimensions. When the torpedoes detonated simultaneously, they created a chain reaction that tore through folded space and erupted back into normal reality at precisely calculated locations. The alien fleet found itself surrounded by explosions that appeared from nowhere, striking with perfect accuracy at their most vulnerable points. But that was only the beginning. The artificial black holes that the destroyers had created began to merge, forming a larger gravitational anomaly that started pulling the nebula's gas toward it. As the gas accelerated, it began to glow with friction heat. Within minutes, the entire center of the nebula had become a river of superheated plasma flowing directly through the alien formation. The probability fields activated next. Ships that should have been protected by shields found that their defenses simply decided not to work. Weapons that should have fired experienced sudden mechanical failures. Navigation systems that should have calculated escape routes instead provided coordinates that led directly into the plasma stream. The alien fleet began to disintegrate, not from overwhelming firepower, but from the systematic failure of everything they relied upon. Their own technology turned against them as the humans manipulated the fundamental probabilities that governed how machines functioned. Admiral Chen watched the destruction with professional detachment. This was not about revenge or conquest. This was about sending a message. The message was simple. Human space was protected by forces that operated beyond conventional understanding of warfare. "All ships return to normal space," she ordered. The human fleet materialized in the center of what had once been a mighty alien armada. Debris floated around them, but there were no survivors. The engagement had lasted exactly 14 minutes, just as the intelligence reports would later claim. Commander Park looked at the scanner readings with amazement. "Admiral, how did you know they would advance in that exact formation?" Chen smiled. "Because that is what their tactical manuals tell them to do. Aliens fight wars by following rules. We fight wars by rewriting the rules. Once you understand that difference, predicting their behavior becomes simple." As the Indomitable began its return journey to human space, Chen reflected on the broader implications of their victory. The aliens still did not understand what they were truly fighting. They thought this was about territory or resources or political power. They did not realize that humanity was fighting for something much more fundamental: the right to exist without interference. The galaxy would learn eventually. Every species that chose to threaten humanity would receive the same lesson. Humans did not fight wars the way others did. They solved problems, and anyone who threatened their existence became a problem to be solved with characteristic human. The news of the Kepler Nebula disaster reached the Galactic Council within hours. What had been planned as the final assault on human space had become another impossible defeat. 2,400 ships, representing the combined might of nearly 1,000 civilizations, had been completely destroyed by 12 human vessels. Speaker Veltar sat in his private chambers, staring at the battle reports with growing despair. The numbers made no sense. The tactical analysis was incomprehensible. According to the few automated probes that had survived the engagement, the humans had somehow turned the nebula itself into a weapon. A soft chime announced an urgent visitor. Admiral Orcs entered, his usually proud bearing replaced by something approaching defeat. His red scales had dulled to an almost gray color, a sign of extreme stress among his people. "Speaker," Orcs said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk." Veltar gestured to a chair. The two beings sat in silence for several minutes, both struggling with the reality of their situation. "How many ships have we lost in total?" Veltar finally asked. Orcs consulted his datapad, though he already knew the numbers by heart. 43,716 vessels, across all 18 major engagements with human forces. Total crew casualties? He paused, unable to continue. "How many?" Veltar pressed. 739 million souls, Orcs whispered. "In 3 months of fighting, the humans have eliminated more military personnel than died in the last 1,000 years of galactic warfare combined." The numbers hung between them like a physical weight. 739 million beings, representing hundreds of different species, all reduced to cosmic dust by a single enemy that seemed to operate by its own rules of reality. "And our own casualties?" Veltar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "0 confirmed human deaths," Orcs replied. "Our intelligence networks have detected no human funerals, no memorial services, no evidence that they have lost a single crew member in any engagement." Veltar felt a chill run through his body. An enemy that could destroy entire fleets without suffering any losses was not an enemy. It was a force of nature, like a supernova or a black hole. You did not fight such things. You fled from them, the Dakor chimed again. This time, it was Councillor Zarath of the Commerce Guild, followed by Ambassador Quoleth of the Diplomatic Corps. Both looked haggard, their usual composure shattered by recent events. "Speaker," Zarath began without preamble, "the economic implications of this conflict are becoming catastrophic. 37 member civilizations have declared bankruptcy due to military losses. Trade routes throughout the galaxy are collapsing as species withdraw their fleets for defensive purposes." Ambassador Quoleth nodded grimly. "Worse, we are beginning to see social unrest on multiple worlds. Citizens are questioning why their governments continue to fight an enemy that appears invincible. Some colonies have declared neutrality and are attempting to establish diplomatic contact with the humans directly." Veltar rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of leadership crushing down on him. "What do our military advisors recommend?" Admiral Orcs looked uncomfortable. "They recommend surrender." The word fell into the room like a stone into still water, creating ripples of shock and disbelief. "Surrender?" Veltar repeated. "The Galactic Council has never surrendered to anyone in 50,000 years of existence." "The Galactic Council has never faced an enemy like the humans," Orcs replied. "Our best strategic minds have run every possible scenario through our war computers. Every single outcome results in complete galactic defeat. The only variable is how long it takes." Zarath leaned forward. "Speaker, if we continue this conflict, we will not just lose the war. We will lose everything. The humans are not conquering our territory. They are simply erasing anyone who threatens them. At this rate, there will be no galaxy left to govern." Ambassador Quoleth cleared his throat nervously. I have been analyzing human communications and behavior patterns. I believe they are not interested in ruling the galaxy. They appear to want something much simpler. Which is? Veltar asked. To be left alone, Quoleth replied. Every human communication we have intercepted carries the same basic message. They want to exist in their small corner of space without interference. They only attack when we enter their territory or threaten their colonies. Admiral Corex activated a holographic display showing the galaxy's current military situation. The human territory was marked in blue, a tiny cluster of stars in the outer rim. The rest of the galaxy was marked in red, indicating areas under Galactic Council control. But the red zones were shrinking as more species withdrew their forces or declared neutrality. Look at this, Corex said, pointing to the display. The humans have made no attempt to expand beyond their original borders. They have not invaded a single star system. They have not established any colonies outside their initial territory. They are not acting like conquerors. Then what are they acting like? Veltar asked. Cornered animals, Quoleth answered, but animals with the power to destroy anything that threatens them. The implications of this analysis began to sink in. The galaxy's greatest civilizations had been fighting what they thought was an aggressive expansion by a dangerous new species. In reality, they had been attacking a defensive position held by beings who possessed overwhelming technological superiority. Zareth looked at the strategic display with growing understanding. We started this conflict by demanding they submit to galactic authority. We told them their independence was unacceptable. We threatened them with conquest if they refused to comply. And they have been defending themselves ever since, Quoleth added. From their perspective, we are the aggressors. We are the ones trying to destroy their civilization. Veltar felt the horrible irony of the situation. The Galactic Council, which had maintained peace for millennia, had inadvertently triggered the most devastating war in galactic history by trying to force a peaceful species to submit to authority they did not recognize. What are you suggesting? Veltar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Ambassador Quoleth straightened his shoulders, preparing to speak words that would reshape galactic civilization. I am suggesting that we formally request peace negotiations with the human government, not as conquerors dictating terms to the defeated, but as supplicants asking for mercy from a superior force. The silence that followed was profound. In the entire history of the Galactic Council, no member species had ever been asked to humble themselves before an enemy. The very concept challenged everything the Council represented. Admiral Corex nodded slowly. The ambassador is correct. We have only two choices remaining: request peace or face extinction. There is no longer any middle ground. Zareth consulted her economic projections. If we continue fighting for another 6 months, the economic collapse alone will destroy most member civilizations. The humans do not need to attack our homeworlds. They just need to keep destroying our fleets until we bankrupt ourselves. Veltar looked around the room at his advisors. These were the galaxy's most capable leaders, beings who had guided their civilizations through countless crises. If they believed surrender was the only option, then the situation was even worse than he had imagined. What would such a peace negotiation look like? Veltar asked. Quoleth had clearly been preparing for this question. We would need to send a formal delegation to human space under a flag of truce. We would acknowledge that our demands for submission were inappropriate. We would offer them complete autonomy within their territory in exchange for a cessation of hostilities. And if they refuse? Admiral Corex asked. Then we prepare for the end of galactic civilization as we know it, Quoleth replied simply. But I do not believe they will refuse. Everything we know about human behavior suggests they want peace. They just want it on their terms rather than ours. Veltar made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Prepare a peace delegation. Select our most skilled diplomats and our most generous offers. We will travel to the human homeworld and request an end to this conflict. As his advisors began making preparations for what might be the most important diplomatic mission in galactic history, Veltar reflected on the bitter irony of their situation. The Galactic Council, which had always been the strongest force in the galaxy, was about to beg for peace from a species they had never bothered to understand. The age of galactic dominance was ending. The age of human independence was about to begin, and the only question remaining was whether the galaxy would survive the transition. The diplomatic vessel Harmony approached the Sol system under a white flag of truce, carrying the most important peace delegation in galactic history. Ambassador Quoleth stood on the bridge, watching humanity's home star grow larger on the view screen. His hands trembled slightly as he reviewed his notes one final time. The delegation represented 47 different species, each one chosen for their diplomatic skills and cultural sensitivity. They carried with them offers of territory, trade agreements, technological exchanges, and formal recognition of human sovereignty. It was the most generous peace proposal the Galactic Council had ever made. "Ambassador," called the ship's captain, "we are receiving a transmission from human space traffic control." "Put it through," Quoleth replied, trying to keep his voice steady. A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in calm, professional tones. "Diplomatic vessel Harmony, you are cleared to dock at Terra Station. Please follow the navigation beacon and maintain current speed. Welcome to Sol System." The simplicity of the greeting surprised the delegation. There were no demands for identification, no elaborate security protocols, no signs of the military might that had devastated galactic fleets. Just a polite welcome and clear directions. As they approached Terra Station, the delegates pressed against the viewports to get their first look at human civilization. What they saw confused them. The station was large but not massive. It was well designed but not intimidating. Most surprising of all, it appeared to be primarily civilian in nature, with docking bays for cargo ships and passenger vessels rather than military craft. "Where are their weapons?" asked Delegate Kefri of the war clans. "Where are their defenses? This station could not withstand an attack from a single cruiser." Quoleth was beginning to understand something that made him deeply uneasy. The humans were not showing any fear because they felt no fear. They had invited a delegation from their enemies to dock at an apparently undefended station because they knew that no force in the galaxy posed a genuine threat to them. The docking process was smooth and efficient. Human technicians guided the Harmony into position with professional courtesy. As the delegation disembarked, they were met by a small group of humans wearing simple civilian clothing. "Welcome to Terra Station," said a middle-aged human woman with graying hair. "I am Ambassador Martinez. I will be handling the negotiations on behalf of the Human Defense Council." Quoleth had expected to meet with military leaders or government officials surrounded by guards and weapons. Instead, he found himself shaking hands with a diplomat who appeared to be alone except for two assistants carrying data pads. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Quoleth said formally. "I am Ambassador Quoleth, speaking for the Galactic Council. We have come to discuss terms for ending the current conflict." Ambassador Martinez nodded politely. "Of course. Please follow me to the conference room. I hope you will find the accommodations suitable." The conference room was large but simple, with a long table and chairs designed to accommodate the various physiologies of the visiting delegates. Large windows offered a spectacular view of Earth, the blue and white marble that was humanity's homeworld. As the delegates took their seats, Quoleth began his carefully prepared presentation. "Ambassador Martinez, the Galactic Council recognizes that errors were made in our initial approach to human expansion. We come today to offer a comprehensive peace agreement that addresses all concerns." He activated a holographic display showing the proposed terms. The offer was unprecedented in its generosity. Humanity would be granted complete autonomy over their current territory, plus additional buffer zones. They would receive favorable trade status, technological exchange agreements, and formal recognition as a galactic power. In addition, Quoleth continued, the Council is prepared to offer reparations for any damages suffered during the conflict. We ask only that humanity agree to standard rules of engagement for future interactions and respect the sovereignty of existing galactic powers. Ambassador Martinez listened politely, occasionally asking clarifying questions or requesting additional details. Her manner was professional but not particularly enthusiastic. When Quoleth finished his presentation, she sat quietly for several moments looking out at Earth through the large windows. Thank you for the comprehensive offer, Martinez said finally. Before I respond, would you like to see something? Without waiting for an answer, she activated a control panel built into the table. The conference room's windows suddenly displayed a real-time view of the galaxy, showing the positions of every major fleet and military installation. The delegates gasped in amazement. The detail was incredible, showing not just the locations of ships, but their exact specifications, crew numbers, and weapons loadouts. The humans had somehow achieved perfect intelligence on every military force in the galaxy. This is our current assessment of galactic military capabilities, Martinez explained casually. As you can see, we have been monitoring the situation quite closely. The display zoomed in to show specific battle groups, including several that the Council had thought were completely secret. The humans knew everything, every ship movement, every strategic plan, every defensive position. How? Whispered Admiral Corvash, one of the military observers. How do you have this information? Martinez smiled slightly. We pay attention. It is a useful habit when you are trying to avoid conflicts. She touched another control, and the display changed to show something that left the delegates speechless. The view pulled back to reveal human space in its entirety, but what they saw was not what they had expected. The territory they had thought contained a few dozen human colonies actually held thousands of installations. Massive space habitats floated in seemingly empty systems. Enormous manufacturing complexes orbited distant stars. Most shocking of all, there were defensive positions surrounding every major galactic trade route and shipping lane. You see, Martinez continued conversationally, when you first demanded our submission, we took the threat seriously. We prepared for the possibility that you might actually try to carry it out. The full scope of human capability was becoming clear. They had not been struggling to defend a small territory. They had been restraining themselves while building an infrastructure that could control the entire galaxy if necessary. Quoleth found his voice with difficulty. You could have, at any time, you could have conquered the galaxy. Martinez finished. Yes, that would have been possible. But we are not interested in ruling other species. We prefer to be left alone to pursue our own development. She stood up and walked to the windows, looking down at Earth with an expression of deep affection. This is our home. These are our people. We have spent centuries learning how to protect what we value without destroying what others value. It has not always been easy. Ambassador Martinez turned back to face the delegation, her expression becoming more serious. Which brings me to your proposal. You offer us autonomy within our current territory. You offer us trade agreements and recognition as a galactic power. You ask us to follow standard rules of engagement. She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle over the room. But you still do not understand what you are asking. Martinez activated another display, this one showing Earth itself. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, but the image zoomed in to reveal cities, forests, oceans, and billions of human beings going about their daily lives. You came to our home, Martinez said quietly. You declared us unfit for galactic society. You demanded that we submit to your authority or face conquest. We refused, so you sent fleets to force us into compliance. The delegates watched images of human families, human children, human communities that had been threatened by their actions. Many of them began to understand, for the first time, the human perspective on the conflict. "We defended ourselves," Martinez continued. "You escalated. We responded. You brought larger fleets. We destroyed them. You brought even larger fleets. We destroyed those too. Each time, we hoped you would understand the message and leave us alone." She turned back to face the delegation directly. "Now you offer us peace. You ask us to agree to rules of engagement and respect galactic sovereignty, but you still assume that we want something from you." Martinez walked back to the table and placed her hands on its surface, leaning forward to look directly into Quoleth's eyes. "We do not want your territory. We do not want your resources. We do not want your technology or your trade agreements or your recognition. We want what we have always wanted, to be left alone." The silence in the room was profound. Every delegate was beginning to understand that they had completely misunderstood the nature of the conflict from the very beginning. "Our peace offer is simple," Martinez said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "Leave us alone. Continue your expansion in any direction that does not involve human space. Pretend we do not exist, and we will pretend you do not exist." She straightened up, her expression becoming almost gentle. "Because the alternative is not more war. The alternative is us deciding that the galaxy might be more peaceful without galactic councils." The threat was delivered so quietly and calmly that it took several seconds for its full meaning to register. Then the delegates realized what